Earthworm Jim, a game franchise that most people from the 90s will remember. That's either by playing the original games on something like Super Nintendo or Genesis, watching the TV show in the morning, or buying the action figures. Whatever the case was, it was a franchise that most people would remember to this day. Well, some. There's still a fan base for the game franchise to this day. And today, we're going to be talking about the Earthworm Jim iceberg. I found this iceberg on Reddit from a user known as TeddyRoos12. For most of you guys that don't know what an iceberg is, you're probably living under a rock, just like me. Anyways, an iceberg is an image with a list of facts that go from uncommon to not common. The more deeper it goes, the more strange and dark it gets a little bit. In that case, let's go. Note, deeper in the iceberg, there's a few topics in the iceberg that talks about some stuff that might be not so safe. So, there is definitely a warning that this iceberg goes from normal to literally strange. Anyway, let's start. Interplay. Interplay is a game company known for making several games like Clay Fighter and Fallout. They're also the owners of the Earthworm Jim IP now, and they only made Earthworm Jim 3D, but not the original game. Shiny Entertainment. Shiny Entertainment was the original team behind Earthworm Jim 1 and 2 that were made by ex-members of Virgin Interactive, who are known for making licensed video games. The members included Doug Knaple, Dave Perry, Tommy Tallarico, Mike Deeds, Mike Kolsch, Tom Panica, and many others. Steam and Google Games released. These were re-released for the MS-DOS version of Earthworm Jim 1 and 2, and the Windows version of Earthworm Jim 3D, that were for the Steam and GOG or Google Games release. However, apparently there's some reports that they're unstable a bit. Well, apparently the Steam version is a lot more worse, as there's some audio missing in Earthworm Jim 3D, and several other little tiny issues. They got fans a little bit upset with the GOG and Steam release, but mostly Steam. Doug Knaple. Doug Knaple is the original creator of Earthworm Jim, and also created other franchises like Neighborhood, Bigfoot Bill, and also worked on some shows like Hat Scratch. He even helped write an episode of Adventure Time known as Son of Mars. Sadly, he's recently started working on stuff like NFTs and comic books, which that's what he's currently doing nowadays. We will be mentioning Doug Knaple every now and then in this iceberg. Cow. Cow is referring to the many cow jokes they make in the Earthworm Jim series, like either a cow landing on somebody or a cow landing on something, or something to do with the cows. Most fans stated that the cow launching is supposed to be a reference to that one scene in Monty Python the Holy Grail, where one of the animals they launch is a cow. Earthworm Jim Beyond the Groovy. Earthworm Jim Beyond the Groovy is apparently a TV show that's going to be a reboot that was announced back in November 18th of 2021, and is coming out somewhere in 2022. The only details that are known about the show is some of the characters' names, concept art of the show, and a teaser.
Well, people call me Earthworm Jim, and I like it. It's my brand, it's me. My friends call me Groovy Jim.
Pocket Rocket. The Pocket Rocket is a device that Jim puts in his pocket that has infinite amount of storage that he could be able to use to drive around in space, and this leads to the anti-asteroid minigames of the game where he's flying around in space, avoiding asteroids, going from planet to planet. Playmates Toys. Playmates Toys is a toy company that's in Hong Kong, known for making many famous toy lines. They actually made an Earthworm Jim line back then, but sadly there's only one wave, with the second wave being cancelled in 1996. Earthworm Jim 3D. Earthworm Jim 3D is the third game in the franchise, and it was an attempt to go into the 3D platform genre. The plot was that Jim got hit with a cow, leading him to go into a coma as the entire game, or in his brain. Apparently when this game came out back then, it got somewhat of a negative feedback, and we'll talk about why later. Michael Kolsch. Michael Kolsch is the artist who did the Earthworm Jim 1 and 2 box art, which looks ultimately fantastic, not gonna lie. Rocketworm. Rocketworm is a fan site for Earthworm Jim that's being run by Catherine Gardner and contains concept art of Earthworm Jim 1 and 2 for information and development of the game, and the Marvel Observed comments we'll mention in a little bit. Jim plays the accordion. This is referring to how in the beginning of Earthworm Jim 2 and 3D, it shows Earthworm Jim playing an accordion before something happens. Which also, in Earthworm Jim 3D, Jim also could play the golden cow udder like bagpipes. Very strange. Clay Fighter 63 and a third. Jim has made a cameo appearance in the game as a playable fighter who has his own attack abilities, and also he appears in the sculpture cut too. This also brings me to the question, why isn't Jim in Smash Bros. Yet? Amico. Back in 2018, the Intelligent Amico was announced to be a new family-friendly console that still hasn't came out to this day because of a bunch of problems. Anyway, in 2020, it was announced that a fourth Earthworm Jim game would be exclusively coming out to the console. Not that much news came out of it, only a teaser that came from the official channel. Speaking of the teaser has been removed a while ago on the official television channel, and it brings me to the question, why did they remove the teaser? You're the Best. You're the Best is the screen they show at the end of Earthworm Jim 1. In the Sega CD, aka Special Edition version of the game, if you beat the game on the difficulty setting, Doug Knable congratulates you for beating the game on the hardest setting. But if you beat the game on an easy setting, you get the "What a Worm" ending, which is a speech that gives to the player if they beat it on that setting. This also does remind me how games back then used to taunt you for several stuff, like Doom 1993. But this is an Earthworm Jim video and not a Doom video. Cartoon. In 1995, they made an Earthworm Jim cartoon series for Kids WB, and the show ran for 2 seasons from 1995 to 1996, and it had Dan Castellaneta in it, who is famous for voicing Homer Simpson. And watching the show nowadays is actually quite difficult, depending on either a streaming service picks it up, but that's rare, or either buying a complete series DVD copy, or finding VHS copies. Good luck. Tommy Tallarico, who is a music composer and also somehow CEO of a television, composed the music for Earthworm Jim 1 and 2, and he also does some other games. But the Earthworm Jim 1 and 2 soundtracks are perfect. 30 magazine ads. This is referring to the many Earthworm Jim ads that have really inappropriate jokes. Most of the time, these are jokes in them. No Hopers. In Donkey Kong Country 2, in the video game hero screen, in the corner, there's a trash can titled No Hopers with Sonic's shoes and Earthworm Jim's ray gun sitting there. And also it's worth somewhat mentioning that Wrinkly Kong carrying a book that if you look closely at the book, it says Worm High. And here's another thing that might be a third example of them referencing Earthworm Jim. In one of the minigames, Slinky Kong tells the player what's the first enemy they see, and one of the answers could be a dirty earthworm. Some people say that Shiny and Rare might have had a rivalry for each other, referencing each other's games in their games, but we'll explain later in the iceberg. Sonic for Hire. Sonic for Hire was a fan-made show, mostly aimed toward adults, made by Lobo Studios, and in one of the videos, Earthworm Jim appears as a character in the story. Earthworm Jim Menace to the Galaxy. Menace to the Galaxy is a Game Boy exclusive game that came out around the same time that Earthworm Jim 3D came out, which was 1999. And the game is, I don't know. There's a collectathon thing in the game. Kind of like how Earthworm Jim 3 got collect the marbles. I don't know. Genesis Mini. In 2019, Sega made the Sega Genesis Mini, which came with 40 games pre-installed into it. One of them was Earthworm Jim, was included in that lineup. And I'm a bit sad that the Sega Genesis Mini 2 is not going to have Earthworm Jim Special Edition on it, but it's going to have Sonic CD. Of course. Robot Chicken. Not to be confused with the Naked Chicken, which is the boss in the first Earthworm Jim game. I'm talking about the adult film show Robot Chicken. In one of the episodes in Season 11, there's a skit where Earthworm Jim and Evil Jim fight each other, with Earthworm Jim trying to cut himself in half, thinking that he can make 2 of himself. And he was also apparently a plan to be in another skit in the 90s revisited from Season 5. This was Charmer vs. Showgirls, but it was cut because it wasn't funny enough. And also, just saying, this is one of the most mild Robot Chicken skits ever, since, June 9th. According to Earthworm Jim's 2 trivia segment that's in the level known as Billy People, or for all Sega Genesis people, Jim was turned into a blind cave salamander. In the game show part, there's a question that asks when is Earthworm Jim's birthday, one of the answers being June 9th. And that is when Earthworm Jim's birthday, not when the game came out, which they actually do reference his birthday in the TV show, or having a little beginning area where they celebrate his birthday. And yes, that does mean Earthworm Jim's birthday is 6/9. Seriously, why would you secretly hide that? Mad. In the Season 3 episode of Mad, in a segment known as Diary of Kid Icarus, there's a scene where Jim can be seen playing dodgeball. Nothing special happens with Earthworm Jim, he's just there for like 1 second. Battle Arena Tershinden PC version. Earthworm Jim is a playable character in the PC version of the game, which he reuses some of the attacks that Rango Iron has, and also some of the voice lines of the PS1 and Saturn version of Earthworm Jim 2. Apparently, it's because Taraka published the first 2 Earthworm Jim games in Japan, so they did that in return. Honeybee Ship. This is one of the most common Earthworm Jim ships you'll find in the fandom, where basically the ship is Earthworm Jim and Princess Regiment, and this leads to some fan art you can find of it. And it's one of the most common ship art that you'll find. Rat Fist. Rat Fist was a comic made by Doug Sneaple back in 2011. In one part of the story, the protagonist ends up encountering Earthworm Jim before Jim runs off after being, quote, creeped out by the main protagonist, Mike Deeds. Mike Deeds is the main animator of Earthworm Jim, and he also worked on some other games like Disney's Aladdin for the Sega Genesis, and also made tons of concept art of Earthworm Jim that you can find to this day. Intestinal Distress. Intestinal Distress was a level that was exclusively added to the Sega Genesis and Special Edition versions of the game, which has Jim running around an area that seems to be intestines, fighting a boss known as Doc Duodenum, that little tiny intestine that's in your body. Anyways, the reason why it was an exclusive was because Sega gave Shiny an offer for exchange cartridge costs if they made an extra level in their version of the game. So Nick Brody got some of this old concept art and made it into a level. There were some rumors going on that the reason why it was never in a Super Nintendo version was because of the anti-blood and gore policy they had, but that's actually false. Strangely, the level appears in the Game Boy Advance version of the game. Electric Playground. Electric Playground was a TV show that would review certain video games and development of it. In one episode, they talk about the making of School Monkeys, which is a game that Fred Sable and were working on, which at one part did have a Earthworm Jim statue that Tommy Tallarico and Doug Sable would show off. And also, in the show, they'd play some music from Earthworm Jim 1 and 2. Groovy. Bigfoot Bill. Bigfoot Bill was a series of comics made by Doug Sable to be Jim's spiritual successor. But he ended up getting the comic book rights to make Earthworm Jim, so he decided to make the One Kick-Out comic. Apparently there's a third book being in the works, but it's unknown if Doug Sable finished working on the third book, or if he's still working on it. Earthworm Jim Launch to Cal. Earthworm Jim Launch to Cal was a comic book reboot series that Doug Sable made around 2019, which he had made 2 books, which is Earthworm Jim Launch to Cal and Fight the Fish, which is somewhat of a reboot, as there's some really strange changes, like Princess What's-Her-Name being Queen Slugfurbutt's apparently daughter. It somewhat contains some random references to random things, and also some fourth wall breaks. And also, yeah, there's like a bunch of random stuff in this book. But they became really heavy collector's items since they were only an exclusive item able to buy for a limited amount of time, and they were funded on Kickstarter. Like I mentioned about the Bigfoot Bill book, it's unknown if he's working on a part 3. Therefore, making these books one of the most hardest things to collect and come by. Psychro is addicted to coffee. So basically, in a Season 2 episode in Hyper Psychro, the entire episode is literally about Psychro drinking an optical shot of espresso, which grants him new powers. And he just becomes more and more powerful after just drinking more espresso. And that's basically the entire episode. And I guess it's just also saying that Psychro might be addicted to coffee because it is. Earthworm Jim HD/TS. Earthworm Jim HD was a remaster of Earthworm Jim 1 that was made by Gameloft back in 2010 and was released on the PS3 and Xbox 360. It has been delisted around 2018 because they lost the rights to Earthworm Jim So the game became delisted, and for the Nintendo DSi, it was the same thing, but just, yeah, the same thing happened to it. So, yeah. NES bootlegs. There are many NES and Famicom bootlegs of Earthworm Jim. The most famous ones are Earthworm Jim 3 and Happy Dicky. And even some of these are hard to find nowadays and are rare to encounter. Kinda. Tremors 2 trailer in the VHS tapes. In the Earthworm Jim TV show VHS tapes, one of the most craziest things about them is there's an advertisement for Tremors 2, which, to remind you, is a movie about these giant worms that destroy the world, kinda. And since we've seen the Earthworm Jim joke, this is another one of the Earthworm Jim's worm jokes, or him referencing another type of worm. I don't know. Marble Observed. In 1995, there were 3 comics for Earthworm Jim that were made under the Marble Observed series, which Marble Observed is known for making licensed comics based off of some shows like Beavis and Butthead and Ren and Stimpy. They made 3 Earthworm Jim comics, which you can be able to read on Raw Rocket Worms. If you're trying to collecting these comics are quite difficult, since nowadays they're worth a lot of money, like some sites on eBay selling them for a high amount of money. Mainly the first issue of the comics literally costs a fortune to get. Earthworm Jim 3D development hell. This kind of explains it itself, because Earthworm Jim 3D was announced back in 1997. It didn't come out until October of 1999. The reason why was apparently because there's different versions of the game. So some parts of development, some ideas were changed, some different things were changed for the game, so it led to it being late 2 years. As if you look at beta screenshots of Earthworm Jim 3D, there's a lot of different stuff. Matt McMuscles made a video talking about why Earthworm Jim 3 took a while to come out, which is kind of interesting. The question I wonder if the beta of Earthworm Jim 3D is better than what we got for Earthworm Jim 3D. But yet again, there's some people who keep saying that this game is trash, and also it was one of the last few games of Earthworm Jim to exist around that era. But yet again, some say this is what killed the franchise. Sacrifice Easter egg. One of Shiny Entertainment's other games, no, I'm not talking about Wild 9, in the game known as Sacrifice, there is a god of the earth named James who rules the deserts of Lee. And also just saying, it's quite obvious just to say that James' head literally looks like Earthworm Jim. And this does remind me of that whole Netflix adaptation meme. Just like Earthworm Jim is like a Netflix adaptation. Asterix and Obelix XXL2 Mission Lost Freedom Easter. And one of the employee rooms, there's a bunch of danger signs and cow signs that you can find. There's also a hanging fridge, which could be a reference, to the Earthworm Jim launching cow sequence in the game. And also because, you know, the cows just fall on anybody, as has been confirmed in the show. Banned Granny ad. For the first Earthworm Jim game, there was a commercial made to promote the game of an old granny telling the story of Earthworm Jim while she ate a bowl of earthworms, which the ad was pulled from US TV. Which, yet again, it was the 90s, you know, 90s is grossed out humor. But here's my real question. What's worse? The Earthworm Jim commercial.
Earthworm Jim video game. In outer space, a sweet evil cyborg lost a green cyberspace suit. Well, it smooshes. Right in that slimy Earthworm Jim, and blammo, he becomes a superpowered hero. He takes out that precious dog. Then that stupid worm goes onto the planet Earth. He even tries mucus spongy jumping.
And if that doesn't stop him, maybe the battle with Queen festering sweaty slug for a butt will. Earthworm Jim from Playmates.
Stating this one, or the Yoshi's Island commercial, which featured something similar to this.
Too much? Too much? To find out, we crammed everything into Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. 60 more levels, massive enemies, huge Yoshi tricks, all served up with the latest graphic technology, Morphmation.
No more.
Sure you don't have room for another little bonus level? Super Mario World 2, only on the Super NES. Still the big one.
Big Broody. Big Broody is a exclusive level that was only in the special edition version of the game, which, to remind you, only came out on Sega CD and Windows 95. The level has Jim running around an area that seems to be like a shack or some sort of area made out of wood with nails and everything, fighting against these mosquito-like creatures while avoiding this creature known as Broody, or everyone just calls it Broody. And yes, the level is named after Nick Broody, who was the art director. This is also why a special edition is worth playing. Russia fandom. The Russian fandom is pretty dedicated to Earthworm Jim, somehow. As with them even modding Earthworm Jim 1, 2, and 3D so it could be played in Russian, but sadly, they only made the mod for Earthworm Jim 3D. Jim's hyper-intelligent brains. Earthworm Jim has 4 hyper-intelligent brains currently, even though earthworms have a certain amount of brains in them in real life. Anyways, this is referring to a clip of a show where this happens.
I'll solve this problem with my 4 hyper-intelligent brains. I'm hungry, I'm cold, I'm itchy. Where are the girls?
And back in November of 2021, oh no, not that year, everyone, an Instagrammer made an edit where instead of saying the quote, "where the girls," it ends up saying something else. I'll let you hear.
Solve this problem with my 4 hyper-intelligent brains. I'm hungry, I'm cold, I'm itchy.
Enter the Gungeon Easter egg. Gungeon is a multiplayer game that some people might have heard of. Anyways, in the game, there's a weapon the player could get called the quote, Heck Blaster, which is a weapon the player could get in the game, which the description is saying, quote, extremely rapid-fired, used by a wiggly hero in the early days of the Gungeon. Most likely referring to Earthworm Jim. Cancelled Boogerman reboot. If you guys don't know who Boogerman is, Boogerman's a game character that some people might have heard of, who basically burps, farts, and picks his nose in order to attack enemies. Anyways, basically in 2013, there was a Kickstarter that was started to make a reboot to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the series, and apparently had planned to have a co-op mode featuring Earthworm Jim as a playable character, but the Kickstarter failed to reach this goal, basically canceling the game. Crazy Drake. It exists. It just does. Worm Milk Ship. This is the ship name for Earthworm Jim and Evil Jim. Yes, people do ships for some reason. Apparently, the reason why the name's like that is, according to many people, comes from a broken wording of English. And yeah, this ship is just, why does it exist? It makes no sense. Like, who would ship these two? I get why shipping Earthworm Jim because what's her name, but shipping Evil Jim and Earthworm Jim is like, this makes no sense. Scrap Fat Jim level. There's a lot of cut stuff from Earthworm Jim 2, from 3D sprites that are meant to be in the game, from a 3D-ish green creature that's going to come out in anything but tangerine. One of the things that some people might know is the Scrap Fat Jim level, where, according to some concept art that Mike Deeds did of this, of what the level would have been like, it would have featured an Earthworm Jim with a fatter version of his suit. The reason why it never made it into the game was because the drawings could apparently not fit onto the cartridge. The real question is, what would the level been like, since all we do know is how Earthworm Jim would look like in the level, but what would the gameplay be like? Would there have been a certain gameplay gimmick introduced, or would it have just been more platforming? Derver Comics. Derver Comics were a line of 5 comics that were released by them in 1996 for the UK, and there's 5 books of them that were based off of the cartoon. Apparently there's a 6th one that was planned, but it was cancelled. And just like the Marvel Observe comics, these are extremely rare to encounter and highly expensive. Kinda. The alien helpers are Asian stereotypes. In Earthworm Jim 3D and Happiness World, there are these aliens, known as the alien helpers, that are enemies that Jim encountered. How they look like are aliens that are basically purple, crooked teeth, constantly chuckling, and sometimes they carry a walk as are seen in the PC version of the game. That's just all. That's all I was able to find about them. Those French people have a whole other language. This is a line that came from the TV show where these 2 bank robbers, after saying something in French, ended up saying that.
Le fromage, man, it's like those French guys have a whole other language. Yeah.
And yes, this is a reference to Pulp Fiction, which is why this scene blew up on the internet. How many other things does Earthworm Jim have to reference? Lost Pilot. If you're familiar with what Lost Media is, you can literally see there's a lot of Lost Pilots in the Lost Media community. And surprisingly, there is an Earthworm Jim Lost Pilot that was made around 1995. And there are several things that are different in the pilot, as you'll find a few screenshots of it, even a promo.
Out of the video game and on to Kids WB, it's Earthworm Jim! A new superhero who fights for truth, justice, and the American way! Okay, so he's just a garden variety earthworm with a really groovy suit! It's an all-new all action, all slimy animated series. Earthworm Jim, today on Kids WB.
By the time I was working on this video, YouTuber known as Mr. Bones did a subject talking about this lost pilot, as he found out that it actually was not a pilot, but a test animation that Doug Snaple and another person did in order to show off to the people that are making the show on how to draw Earthworm Jim. And yes, this is a lost test animation, not a pilot. Worm eating contest. In December 1995, in an issue of GamePro, to promote Earthworm Jim 2, they sent a reader a worm and a lollipop, or a candied worm, and told them that basically to take a picture of themselves eating it and send it to them in order to be entered into a raffle. And it's really unknown who the winner is, as people haven't really found out who it was. But also, just saying, this just remind me, this is such a cool idea we should probably bring back. Like, I know candied bugs are a thing, but it's just like, very interesting. Earthworm Jim PSP. Yes, there was a PlayStation Portable game that was planned around 2006. There even is a build that was made of the game that is showcased in E3, but sadly the game was cancelled in 2007 for some reason. Probably money issues. Japanese fandom. Even though the TV show Earthworm Jim 3D and Clay Fighter never came out in Japan, for some reason there is a cult following in Japan with a lot of fan art and things that people have made, which is quite really interesting to learn about. Flash Earthworm Jim 3D. This one is kind of strange, is that there's actually a dub with actual voice lines and text box changes that are in Polish. And also some of the music is mixed up too. And it's one of the other languages that's in the GOG version of the game. Cartoon fetish scenes. In the cartoon, there was a lot of instances of implication, cross-dressing, and gore in the cartoon, even though the cartoon was targeted for kids. Those two things being a snippet of animation in the show's intro, and also several other parts of the show. Like literally, Earthworm Jim dresses up the Flapper in one episode. Sailor Jim. This was an idea that inspired by a spear frame in the popular 1990s anime Sailor Moon, where in this one smear frame of a character, it literally looks like Earthworm Jim, not gonna lie. It does. It's just a Green Lantern figure. I guess it's referring to the exclusive mail order action figure of Earthworm Jim that kind of resembles Green Lantern. But yeah, this is an extremely rare order figure that you're able to get by ordering it through the mail. And yes, it is one of the more expensive and rarer items to get to obtain because of its rarity. Lost Italian dub. An Italian dub of a show called Jim la Astroverme, or Jim the Starworm, was prepared to air on Italy 1, but it just for some reason got cancelled before the air. The only thing was found for the dub was an original theme song made in 2003 by Christina de Agba. And it's extremely different, not gonna lie. Donkey Kong Cheat. Basically, remember how I mentioned earlier that there might have been a rivalry between Rare and Shiny? This is kind of why. In the Sega CD version of Special Edition, if the player clicks a certain combination, they can swap out Jim's head with Donkey Kong's head, but with an arrow through it. Some say there might have been a rivalry because Donkey Kong Country 1 and Earthworm Jim came out the same year. Earthworm Jim HD contains stolen fan art and bubbles from Finding Nemo. The HUD icon is literally ripped straight from this person's iconic Earthworm Jim fan art they've done on DeviantArt. And on pictures of Bubbles from Finding Nemo can be seen scrolling through down the tubes. Which questions me, how did no one not notice this? Was I the only one that noticed this after watching footage? Earthworm Jim PS2. Back in 2003, an Earthworm Jim game was in development and was meant to be released around 2003 for the PS2 and original Xbox. The project was cancelled early for some sort of reason, not really many issues, and it had a bunch of really crazy concept of the game, like Earthworm Jim doing a musical sequence and a place made out of cheese. I wonder how this all would have turned out. But wait, what was Interplay working on back in 2003? All that. King animation. In the Windows 95 version of Special Edition, if you click F10, for some reason it triggers an animation in Jim that peas. What the heck? Earthworm Jim. Earthworm Kim is the final boss of Earthworm Jim 3D. She is Jim's feminine side of his mind, who we have to fight. Apparently, if you lose the fight, according to the game's text box, Jim will turn into a quote, super Peroni for a while. And this brings me to question, how did this get away with this? But yet again, we'll mention Kim again near the end of the iceberg. Psychro fought in Vietnam. In the Hyper Psychro episode of Earthworm Jim, Psychro states that he met the Great Worm Spirit because, I quote,
Have you seen the Great Worm Spirit before?
He saved my life in the Nam, man. It was the Mekong Delta, see? Charlie was moving in hard and fast. Grunts were getting shot to pieces all around me. It was a nightmare, man, a screaming nightmare. Then the Great Worm Spirit pulled me into a foxhole. I'll never forget it, man. Not till my dying day, man.
They Call Him Evil. They Call Him Evil was a comic released back in 1991, 3 years before Earthworm Jim Butts. This was a book about Evil the Cat, and this was before anything to do with Earthworm Jim and Evil the Cat appearing as a villain in that series. If you were to order the Fight the Fish book, you would have got a reprint of this book that would have been in color, and there would be little tiny changes to the book. Jim's anatomy. This makes no sense. It's really confusing. It's like, there's this inside of it, there's this. Jim has, earthworms have like 5 hearts in them, which is kind of interesting, but it's quite confusing. Is it referring to the suit or him? That's the thing. The only known credited voice actor in Earthworm Jim 3D is Dan Castanella. In the Earthworm 3D credits, it's seen that Dan Castanella was the one that voiced Earthworm Jim, but none of the people who voiced the bosses were credited, which is very strange. Thanks to the cartoon, we know that Psychro and Bob and First Look for a Head are voiced by Jim Cummings and Shirley Adler, and sometimes there's a bit of guesswork. Patty Roswell, some people do think that he's voiced by Jim Cummings. It's kind of Earthworm Kim, on the other hand, some people think that she might be voiced by Linda Wallum, who voiced Dr. Hutchison from Rocko's Modern Life.
Here's your problem. These little lightning bolts indicate pain. Good conductor. Anyway.
Lost Latin dub. There's not that much you can find on the internet about this. There might be a Latin dub, since there was going to be an Italian dub of Earthworm Jim, but yeah, there's not that much about the Italian dub either. Rule 34. No, you know what? I'm not gonna read the rest. I'm not gonna. Why? Princess What's Her Name's family. This one is kind of long, depending on what type of version you're talking about. In the game and TV show, it's been told that Queen Slugfurbutt and Princess What's Her Name are twin sisters. However, in the Doug's and April reboot books, apparently Queen Slugfurbutt is Princess What's Her Name's mother, until in the second book it's later found out that Princess What's Her Name ends up encountering her actual parents in some sort of plot twist in the second book. Jim is an asexual hermaphrodite. Remember when I mentioned the What a Worm ending in Special Edition that you only get if you beat it on the easy mode? Well, this is referring to that ending, where they explain to you what a worm is. Here are 2 of the lines they do mention in the ending, which basically leads to this kind of result, as the title states. Tommy Tallarico sampled Rhythm Nation, Terminator, and Live Happy. This one's also self-explanatory, not gonna lie. In the instrumental Rhythm Nation, there's these flute sounds you can hear that can be heard in the New Junk City theme. Meanwhile, a line from the Terminator sampled in both It's Not Problem and the Anti-Asteroids Victory theme is a, quote, hey sound. Lastly, a chime in the Live Happy CNC Music Factory can be heard in the following. Puppy Love. Puppy Love is a 3-part level that you play in Earthworm Jim 2, which is kind of like the Anti-Asteroids before Earthworm Jim 2, where Psychro has a bunch of Peter Puppy's children? Something like that he tosses out the window as Jim has to try to catch them. I don't know why this is deep in the iceberg. My guess is probably because of the fact that Psycho is literally trying to kill them by tossing them out the window while Jim has to literally catch them before they fall. And no, there's no blood. Does Jim have a male What is wrong with you guys? Earthworm Jim is just an earthworm in a mechanical robotic suit. You guys need to touch some grass. It's like, I don't get why you guys need to touch grass. Mike Pilot died in an avalanche before Earthworm Jim 2 came out. This one kind of speaks for itself. Well, I couldn't really find information about this, since when you usually Google Mike Pilot, you'll find out he worked on Earthworm Jim 2, but he might have died from this. And also, in Earthworm Jim 2's ending, there is a section dedicated to him. Ged Grimes sampled King of the Beast and the theme song for Fantasy. This is referring to the music track that plays in Earthworm Jim's 3D Wild West area in the Fantasy stage. Which, not gonna lie, if you're gonna make a level based off of the Wild West, you gotta put music that matches it really well. But not gonna lie, the Fantasy theme is still good. In the Fantasy theme, there's an audio clip you can hear of Jim saying groovy. And the audio clip is what is from the original theme of Earthworm Jim at the ending of the theme.
Groovy!
Not only that, but also there's somewhat of a sample of the siren heard in the King of Beats by Matronics. Earthworm Jim cosplay. If there's one thing I learned about the cosplay community, cosplaying, you have to get it right a certain way. Cosplaying as certain characters is easy, while other ones are impossible, like Earthworm Jim. If you look at half the cosplays of Earthworm Jim, some seem extremely difficult to do. Heck, I even cosplayed as Earthworm Jim, and that's difficult to get right. And I'm even planning to do it again, except better, I think. The suit's battery's in the butt. This explains it for itself.
Have a look!
Gods.
What does it say on the battery?
Like I said, gods.
Destructoid getting his thumbnail. Basically, a news article from 2011 by Stephen Sterling was talking about Doug TenNapel and how he's apparently homophobic. Meanwhile, the thumbnail of it is kind of strange, where basically it's the image from the Sega Saturn version of Earthworm Jim 2, where you only get it if you beat the game in one sitting. Instead of it showing Earthworm Jim in the TV, it shows to what seems like two men kissing. Everyone knows they're in a cartoon. This comes from the high amount of fourth wall breaks in TV show.
You cannot say this word in a cartoon. Why? I can't say.
Oh, wow. Here we go again.
Hold it! You are not doing a here we go again ending on my show.
Well, what kind of ending do you want, Mr. Too Good for Standard Cheesy Cartoon Endings?
What do you think?
The cow thing?
And cue the cow. Pleased to meet you, Mr. Hey, you don't look like the president.
I'm one of those generic presidents they use on TV to keep shows from becoming dated.
I'm not gonna lie, when was the last time you played a TV show or a game and you heard almost all the characters break the fourth wall? Jim went to rehab for 25 years. This comes from a line in the Beyond Groovy TV show.
Just to be clear, I don't want to talk about my days in rehab, but it wasn't very long.
If you were to subtract from when the teaser came out, which was in November of 2021, minus 25, that would be 1996, when the last season of the show was made. Turlock is based off of Turlock. In the TV show, the town that they live in is known as Turlock, and it's quite obvious that it's kind of based off of a Turlock, which is a real town in California. It's kind of obvious. Dune references. There are several references to the Dune series, including in the TV show, Peter Pepe always mentions the quote, "I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer" line. And also in the Fight the Fish book, they actually do bring back the line. And also just saying, in the Beyond Groovy teaser, Jim mentions something about not commenting about the Arrakis worm.
I will not comment about those Arrakis worms from Dune. Come on, man.
Does Princess like Jim? This is the really biggest, well, longest question that is in the Earthworm Jim community, if she does like Earthworm Jim. The answer is yes and no, and it's quite long on why. As in the first game, she might have offered Earthworm Jim a kiss, but in the second game, she seems to be kind of meh about him, and even though in the TV show, Jim does call her a bunch of random stuff, like Polka a Joy, or Pastry of Joy, and a few other stuff. There are some times in the show where she does question Earthworm Jim, like in the episode Bring Me the Head of Earthworm Jim. Earthworm Jim mentions apparently he has a date with her, until the end, and she realizes they're just having dinner. If what's her name even does ask him why he's calling it a date. And in the episode, Queen What's-Her-Name, Earthworm Jim's always asking her about their relationship, and she always responds with saying, "What relationship?" In the book, it's a whole other story I really don't know. One thing I did find interesting is that in the snipping segment, which are these little tiny cards that come with the action figures, aka the box that you would cut out and read, she mentions that Jim is, quote, kinda her boyfriend. Yeah, I don't know. So the answer is yes and no, that she likes him. Maybe, maybe not. Jim has a higher chance to kill Psychro in the wild rather than Psychro killing Jim. So basically in the wild, crows are basically scavenger birds, as they scavenge for random stuff. So in this case, Psychro wouldn't be a threat to Earthworm Jim unless he has to. But worms can be able to eat eggshells, or, well, eggs. Well, not really eggs, but just eggshells. They have to think for eggshells. So yeah, that's basically one thing I was able to find out. So basically, my real question is, what would win in the wild, a crow or an earthworm? Jim Henson movie. There's not a lot known about this. The only thing that's mentioned is on a YouTube channel that Slopes Gaming. In their video for MDK, they mentioned something about apparently there being a film that was going to be made by Jim Henson for Earthworm Jim. This may or may not be true. I really don't know. I can't find a lot about it on the internet. But if this was true, how would the Jim Henson version of Earthworm Jim would have been like? Earthworm Jim doesn't care about the Earth theory. This theory is somewhat of a gag that's referring to that appears in the show in the Denver comics, where whenever something bad is in wanting to destroy the world, basically Earthworm Jim, instead of going after whatever it is, he sometimes tries to go after something else. Like for example, in the Book of Doom episode of Earthworm Jim is going after a pop-up book, even though it has some sort of message inside that could possibly destroy the universe. He even does say in the episode, I don't care about saving the Earth, I just want my pop-up book back. And in the Denver comic, in the first one, it's a pot of gold that he's going after. Tapeworm theory. This theory originated from a Twitter user known as Cruise Lane. The entire theory is about Earthworm Jim 1 takes place in the human body, with New Jack City being a mouth, and the asteroids being the Hippogus, What the Heck being a stomach, Big Birdie being a gallbladder, and the asteroids 2 being the urinator tract, Down the Tubes being something, and the asteroids 3 being vomiting, it's not a problem, being a nose, and the asteroids 4 being nerves, level 5 being a brain, while Who Turned on the Lights is the stupid part of that brain, and the asteroids 5 being the arteries, for Pete's sake being a heart, and the asteroid 6 being the veins, intestinal distress being the small intestine, and the asteroid 7 being the large intestine. Finally, Buttville is the quote, 7th planet of the universe. Jim is transgender theory. This theory is due to Earthworm Jim being an intersex, because he's a worm, and as we mentioned, worms are hermaphrodites, meaning they go from one gender to another. In the TV show, one of the episodes, they mentioned that Earthworm Jim's biggest fear is being in a public restroom, and there's an animation error in one of the episodes where Jim, Peter, and Scott go into a bathroom to find something, which if you look at the door, it says it's a girl's bathroom and not a guy's bathroom. And also because of Earthworm Kim being the final boss of Earthworm Jim 3D, is also trying to take over Jim's brain, and can be interpreted as denial. Kind of. Fatty Roswell and Earthworm Kim were scrap villains from the TV show theory. This one basically theorizes that since Earthworm Jim 3D is more based off of the cartoon and not of the other games, there's a chance that Fatty Roswell and Earthworm Kim, who appeared in the 3D game, might have originally been villains from the TV show. Fatty Roswell, there's not that much evidence of it, but Earthworm Kim, there kinda is, where in the intro we see Jim wearing a brown wig, which is similar to the ones that Earthworm Kim wears, except hers is yellow while his is brown. Peter Puppy is gay theory. This theory was created mainly because of the cartoon, as there are several times where Peter's cross-dressed several times in the show. And also has many mental breakdowns, well, only 2 times whenever Jim's missing. In the first episode, where Jim goes off because he doesn't want Peter as a psychic anymore, and in the 5th episode, after Jim goes to jail, after Evil Jim frames him. And Peter being stuck with a woman that, quote, rather pull his skin and roll around his slit. Jim's hospital is trying to kill him theory. In the intro of Earthworm Jim 3D, we see Jim laying in the hospital bed. One thing you might notice is there's a belt tied around him minus his arm being in a cast, which is kind of strange, even though it's a suit, which is kind of strange. Anyways, the game text box mentions that the nurse was, quote, searching for signs of life by shaking Jim's head. And if you're wondering, if you were to shake someone's head while they're in a concussion in real life, this would be completely terrible, as it will make it even worse, most likely leading to his death and a few other things. As the game ends with Earthworm Jim waking up with a baguette of flowers in his hand. And that was the entire Earthworm Jim iceberg.